internet. If it's my dad, tell him I'm not here. I like mommy better. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And for once, it looks like we're in luck. I think. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film straight out of Iran, The Salesman.
The Salesman. And this is
The Salesman, as you just heard.
Yeah. I'd never heard that before.
Rush? You gotta listen to some Rush, man.
See, I feel like I'm lacking in my musical taste in terms of Rush and Pink Floyd. I just haven't heard a lot of it. I don't know. I know it exists. I know it's huge.
Sure.
I just haven't dipped into the canon.
You know what? It's a deep well that you need to be prepared for.
That's the thing. That's like whenever you like. I have a lot of Pink Floyd on an old iPod, but it's like 40 albums.
Yeah,
or something like that.
it takes a minute to get into.
And I was like, where do I even begin?
Anywhere. At that point, just anywhere. Put it on shuffle.
But segues into, this is exciting for me because for the last 2 years that we've been doing this podcast, every year we've done the best of episodes. And every time we do those best ofs, we kind of have this thing, which is like, what's the best movie you saw that we didn't review? And for me, for the last 2 years, it's been, without a doubt, movies by Asghar Fahardi, the director of The Salesman. It was, first one was The Past, and the second one was About Ellie. This is the fourth film I've seen of his, and so he is probably my favorite working director right now. So I'm excited.
I feel like you say that a lot.
Well, but of movies we don't review. Like,
what about La La Land director guy?
I like Damien Chazelle. He's not my favorite working director right now.
Okay.
No? I like him. I like, who's my favorite working director right now?
I feel like
Denis Villeneuve. We've talked about him a lot. I like him a lot.
I feel like I don't know.
Asghar Fahardi
is your favorite. Straight up, definitively.
He is the guy I'm most like when there's a new Asghar Fahardi film coming out. I'm very excited. Not just because
More than Taika
Waititi.
Yeah.
Well, so his new film is Thor, and you know my excitement level for
What
Thor.
What if Thor is going to be your favorite movie?
Of all time?
Of all time.
Do you think that's completely possible at this point?
I think it's highly improbable, but that doesn't mean nothing is impossible, Shahir.
I like Taika a lot, but the thing, so I think Asghar Fahardi's movies are the reason I love movies. Like
Interesting.
The Past, A Separation, and About Ellie are three films that not only captivate me on a purely gut level, like they make me, quelch up and sit in my seat kind of weird and just I can't stop watching these movies. They're also, they change the way I look at the world every time I come out of them. The movie The Past has one of, I think, I would say the greatest final shot in any film I think I've ever seen. So I was excited to get you to see this movie, but I was very sad for the reason we are having this conversation.
Right. Well, it's nominated, obviously, if you've heard, dear listeners, for Best Foreign Film at the Academy Awards this year.
Yep.
Which is great.
Great.
The sad part.
This is beyond sad for me. This is, okay. We're going to sidetrack into politics here for a second, as we have want to do from time to time.
And it's not, listen, world, you make us do this. This is why we can't have nice things.
What happened last Saturday or last Friday has me so, I don't know what the word is, but it has me so, I mean, look, there's anger, obviously. There's anger, but then it breaks down into a fundamental disappointment in the world we live in and what I thought the world was.
And for those of you who have been living under a rock, we're talking about Trump's Muslim ban.
Which he's saying is not a Muslim ban, and you can't use the word ban.
Oh, it's so funny because what's his name? Spicer, whatever. Well, he's used the word ban after you said you can't use the word ban. So
of course, and Trump ran his entire campaign on saying I want to ban all Muslims from coming into America until we figure what the hell is going.
Yeah.
I don't know what the I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but I am surprised that he followed through with this. And my problem is, so the upshot of one of these, of part of this happening, is that people who are green card holders, American citizens, permanent residents of America, were detained in airports in America for the country they live in. So, like a friend of ours is a postdoctoral fellow. About to start their postdoctoral fellowship in America, but has an Iranian passport and now has to cancel that whole trip.
Jesus.
Lives in Canada, has lived in Canada her entire life, and now has to cancel that thing. And the thing from her professor that we heard was like, this is just one of the most embarrassing things that our country has ever done. And I can't tell you, I'm a minority. I'm also a green card holder. I'm from New Zealand, so I'm not on the list for what it's worth.
Well, he pissed off Australia, and that's right next door.
It is right next door. But I can't tell you the upshot of this order, this executive order. It goes a long way to make you feel small. It goes a long way to make you feel vulnerable. It makes you feel unequal, and that's how I feel right now.
Yeah, and it's fucking bullshit, man. Like, and that's like the fact that this guy now too, even going beyond this, back to the director of the film, like he can't go to the fucking award show.
He can't. Now, to be fair, Iran has done a lot of terrible things in terms of human rights violations, in terms of censorship.
Yep.
But I thought,
but this dude didn't.
I thought we were better than that, and we're not. We're clearly not. Yeah. And that's what's troubling and what's upset about it. I've had a family member who was planning to come here call and be scared of coming here now. I mean, you as an American citizen, how does it make you feel when you hear people are scared to come to your country?
It fucking sucks. Like, look, I've touched on this before, but like I do feel like whenever we get in this conversation about like, oh, like where people are from, or like historical roots or anything like that with you or any guest, if you want to get into my genealogy, I have a little bit of everything. There's a lot of Polish, there's a lot of Italian, but there's a bunch of my ancestors were a little bit promiscuous. So I have like Blackfoot Indian, I have some Chinese, I have a bunch of different stuff all in me, right?
I saw the Chinese. I can see the Chinese.
But I am someone that this is a weird thing to say. I don't have a culture other than like
you have a culture.
America. I have a current 21st century or 20th, whatever the fuck we're in, American culture. I've never had strong roots in my family to either religion or where we're from. I have no like Polish like or Italian sort of like tradition or anything like that's what it is. I have no tradition from where I am from. Right. And that has always made me feel, especially whenever getting into conversations like this, a little bit empty feels like the wrong word, but like I feel like I never have a lot to offer. So what I've always been able to sort of lean on is like, oh, I'm an American. Okay. And for all or good or bad that has meant over the course of the years. And this is the first time where I feel like the bad is now outweighing the good of saying that you're an American.
Right.
I feel awful that people are afraid to come here. I feel awful that people can't come here. I feel awful that not only are we now the laughingstock of the fucking globe, but it's that like real scary joke because it's a joke that has deathly consequences depending on how you look at what aspect of it. Like, yeah, it's cute and it's funny and then it gets horrible and then it gets deadly. Yeah. And it's just a sense of shame. There's a sense of I'm ashamed, sadly, and not all aspects. There's tons of great aspects about this country, but like, the last, 12, 13 days, whatever the hell it's been, has chipped away at my pride for it. And, and that sucks. And I know not everyone feels the same way. I know, and I really do like hearing from people that are Trump supporters or that support the stuff that want to have actual dialogues about it, because I feel like I really like trying to get into the heads of people that think this is okay, and maybe it's okay. And I have yet to hear a convincing argument, but that does not mean that that people don't have arguments.
Right.
It's just rough, and this is what's weird. It's the least rough for me,
of course.
So
no one's gonna stop you at an airport.
I can't imagine how rough it is for everyone else.
Yeah.
And that hurts. That sucks. That fucking
and
blows.
there are a number of issues that like don't affect me that should affect me more, and like it's obviously this this directly ties into my being, because I'm a green card holder, and it was very upsetting. Again, I'm not from a country on the list, but that shouldn't matter.
Yeah, there shouldn't be a list.
Yeah, that shouldn't matter. And the thing about this is that it is brought on by nothing if not an empty campaign promise and pride.
And this is the other thing. It's ineffective. None of the countries on the list have been behind any of the major terror attacks in the United States.
It achieves absolutely nothing except, like the stories we've heard, which is like Iraqi translators who worked for the military, who have citizens, the
grandmothers in the airports who still say how much they love America after they were detained for like however many hours.
A 5-year-old boy on his birthday was handcuffed.
Yep.
And the only thing I've heard so far is on CNN they collected like a bunch of people calling in one way or the other about this executive order, and I recall a woman saying, "I feel safer at the airports now. I feel safer flying." I'm like, I don't know why you think that.
You know what might make her feel safer? Reading a book. It's so silly, and this is the weird thing, and this is where I feel like I get sort of a smidgen of where people are coming from if only they had correct information.
Right.
Is like if there was a country, let's say there was like North Korea times 1,000,000.
Right.
That we knew they attacked us 9 billion times.
Right.
And yes, not having the people come in to our country unchecked or whatever, I could see that. You know what? Let's put some heavy restrictions there. Let's not ban anybody. Let's not do a 90-day. What are they figuring out in 90 fucking days? Like but that makes sense to me. Like, oh shit, like a real danger backed by facts and figures.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe do some stuff there.
Right.
But you're not, and just the fucking guise of this as like it's just these countries and it's not a bad, like, look, let's even say for the sake of fucking argument that this isn't in their eyes a Muslim ban. Right. Let's say that it's just this in their whatever. If that is true, we are in even more shit than we think because they don't realize the damage and the basic. They're literally making ISIS recruiting videos for them.
Yeah. It has.
We had ISIS on its fucking heels, and now they're going to be like, look what fucking America's doing, and it's going to get bigger, and it's going to hopefully not literally blow up in our face.
I don't
How about the movies, though? The movies are great.
Well, this is a topic I wanted to talk about very briefly before we move into the movie itself as well. And guys, you can email us in, as always, at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. Matt knows I'm sitting here with a kind of a sad face on right now. You can hit us at Twitter at onlymoviepod.
This sounds so excited. You can check us out on our website, onlymoviepodcast.com.
But let's talk about the Oscars for a minute. Here's a hypothetical, Matt. If you and I were nominated for Best Podcast of the Year.
When?
Yeah, when we get nominated for
podcast about movies. I don't know why we don't have a seat at this table.
If we were nominated, when we're nominated for the Best Podcast of the Year.
Sure.
And say one of our fellow nominees was from Iran and couldn't attend the award ceremony. How would you feel about our nomination?
How would I feel about the nomination?
Our nomination. Like, how would you feel about participating in that? Like, how do you think?
The interesting thing is, it's not, for once, it's not the Oscars' fault.
No, it's not the Oscars' fault.
It would suck. That's not the Oscars' fault.
Right. I am of the opinion that this executive order and its resulting banning of Mr. Fahardi, a man who's already won a Best Foreign Film Oscar as well, by the way. We sure feel safer without him flying into
he's gone radical.
Yeah.
I meant that like a Ninja Turtles.
No, I get it. I get it. Nice. It was a good play.
Tubular. A tubular play. This is deeply upsetting to me, and it's deeply upsetting because I think there are many great films at the Oscars this year. I adore Moonlight. I love Arrival. I like La La Land a lot, unlike you. It was all right,
but I feel like, and it's not. I don't ever want to. This has got nothing to do with the work of the people that made those films,
right? But
the awards themselves, in my opinion, has been somewhat tarnished by the fact that an executive order in this country, like for example, if the Toronto Film Festival was having an award ceremony and it was determined that all Americans couldn't attend because Canada said fuck you,
right?
We would look down upon those awards, would we not? We would look down upon the country of those awards.
I think the difference is if the Toronto Film Festival was a government body, if the Oscars were run by the government,
I just think that
The government is the gatekeeper.
Of course. But do you? Well, I guess my point here is that do you think you would enjoy winning an award knowing that someone else wasn't allowed into the table simply because of their country of origin? And I know it's not the Academy's fault.
No, I know that. Again, and this, I don't know if this sound. I don't think this sounds selfish, actually. So I'll just move forward. I think because you're assuming that. I mean, we would win in this scenario, right? Of course we'd win. But but in the best foreign film, his film is not barred from the nomination. He can still win this. He just can't be there to accept it.
Is that? I mean,
but no. Look, and yes, it's incredibly disappointing or whatever. But again, this is why
I think it's beyond disappointing. It is
disappointing in the country. It's not the Oscars. It's not the awards.
No, I don't. I agree. I don't think it's the. I agree. I don't. It's not the fault of the people who've been nominated for awards. It's not their fault. It's not the Oscars' fault either. But I think. I think something should be done about this. And here's the thing, the
sneak them in your luggage? Or
no. The closest thing in New Zealand, for example, back in 1980, New Zealand's a rugby-fearing country. We love our rugby. Rugby is one of the most important things to a New Zealander.
You've never mentioned rugby,
right? Well, no. I mean, it is. I played rugby all the way through high school.
Okay.
In 1980, the Springboks, the South African team, were going to tour New Zealand, and apartheid was still part of the fabric of South Africa as we knew it.
Sure.
And what New Zealanders decided was that we can't divorce sport from politics, and we can't support. And even though these rugby players have nothing to do with apartheid, it's the country themselves. We can't support this. And New Zealand basically almost tore itself apart. And what happened was there was a severe disruption of the games. Games got canceled. There were protests at the games. People rioted, and for New Zealand, it really for South Africa, it really showed that their political stance had a severe cultural impact. And I truly believe that if you are an Oscar nominee, and this is a weird one because it's not your if you're an Oscar nominee, you've done wonderful work. Damien Chazelle, the Moonlight people, you've done amazing work.
Sure.
You deserve to be celebrated.
Yep.
But if you really believe that this is a travesty, and I think it is, I mean, from here on in, I'm going to refer to these Oscars as Trump's Oscars, and I will not, I won't speak about it. I won't tweet about it. And it's got nothing to do with the people that have won. I don't want to diminish from they are all worthy of celebration, but one of them will not be permitted to enjoy that celebration. And I think if you think that that's a travesty, and I do, then you should not attend.
And I get the analogy.
Right.
I do. I think, and again, I don't know the rugby situation more than what you've just said, and you please correct me as I go down this rabbit hole. How do I put it? Rugby is super important in New Zealand, right? How do I put this? That feels more tied culturally to the actual country than the Oscars does for me and for a lot of people. I feel like currently, because the Oscars have kind of lost their shine over the course of the last few years, award shows in general, but the Oscars, and they still exist, of course. The difference is in what I think is to this is going to be a weird sort of sentence, and I might have to backtrack. Trump hates the media and hates all these actors and hates the entirety of the thing. He does. I mean, because they all speak out against him, and because they all have eyeballs. So if they, boycotted it or didn't go or whatever, or it was disrupted, yada, 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 two things would happen. One, he'd love it because these famous people aren't going to have a fucking platform and won't get to, they're not going to enjoy something because of something he did. So he'd love that. Two, I feel like, and this sucks. This is not an example I want to set, but this is one of those uncomfortable times sort of things. Since he can't go, we are now having this conversation. Since he can't go, a lot of fucking people on that stage. And if they don't, I'll be right there with you, but I'll be more mad at the people in the Oscars. But there better be some fucking talk of this at the goddamn Oscars. Right. And the fact
I think that's a minimum, and that's a minimum.
But my point is the Oscars will now have, beyond, giving achievements to great filmmakers, will now have an actual, it sucks they have to do it, but now have an importance and a cause that they can now use their platform, however big or small it is at this point, to hopefully point some shit in the direction of good. Now, is it going to go into an echo chamber? Is it going that is a whole nother conversation for another time. But I do feel like if everyone just didn't go to the Oscars and the Oscars got canceled, it would send.
You don't think that would be a major cultural disruption?
No, because truth be told,
never happened in the history of the Oscars before.
Truth be told, the average American moviegoer, other than hearing about, that won an Oscar, doesn't give a shit about the Oscars. You can look at the box office. You can look at all that stuff. So it's not going to disrupt anything but the people that Trump already fucking hates.
I think it would be a signal that this is not okay. He
would be like, they didn't get their night.
It's not about him. It's about saying it's about saying you're an artist and another artist is not being able to is literally, it's not like his movie's being censored or like given an R16 or something.
Sure.
He's not allowed into the fucking country.
No, I get that.
He's not allowed into the country.
But what I'm saying, and
do we feel safe for no fucking reason?
I understand that, but my argument, and I'm not arguing against that being insane and stupid and fucking just awful. What I'm saying is,
my point is that shouldn't that be
a galvanizing force to make you angry? Yes. Should the Oscars use that on their platform to get more people to hear about it than they have? Yes, because if they just went away, listen, more people will hear about it if they have the Oscars and talk about it than if no one showed up to the Oscars.
I think if no one showed up to the Oscars, that wouldn't be a news story?
It would say, this is the news story that would happen. And it would be spun back the other way to be like, the fucking snowflake liberals wouldn't do their thing because blah, 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 blah. And they'd come across as whiny, but without the actual message being heard by anybody. It would be spun by other sides. Where this, and again, I don't know if they're going to grasp on this task and on this moment that they should. I hope they do. And if they don't, I will be the first to fucking condemn them. And I'm not a fan of, I have to be a fan of the Oscars because of the whole movie thing, but like, I'm not truly an Oscar fan anymore. I used to love it. And it has lost its shine for me due to many things, due to the exclusion even outside of this whole thing, the exclusion of minorities being nominated for things. And then like the weird sort of upswing to kind of like make up for it. And like, but it's just, there's too many things, and just in my own opinion, and I will not fault you for not agreeing with me, is that if they do it right, because of this tragedy that has happened, more good can come from a lot of people speaking about it on that platform than making the platform disappear and having other people basically run the narrative.
I think I don't agree with your notion that not like the Oscars stopping would be a non-story.
It'd be a story, but it'd be a story that they control.
I think it would be a massive story, and I think it would be a really important signal that this is not cool. But I agree that lesser steps could be taken. But the minimum expectation right now is that the fact that a nominee, the filmmaker of the film that we're going to spend the rest of this conversation talking about, cannot come to this country.
Yeah, that's awful. But again, I do have to say, it's not the Oscars.
It's not the Oscars' fault.
Yeah.
And again, don't get me wrong, it's not the Oscars' fault. When the apartheid moment in New Zealand, it's not rugby's fault that this happened. It's
sport.
But I'm saying that if you do believe that this is a travesty, I think you need to make a stand about it.
I mean, I'll happily play BioShock and not watch the Oscars.
We won't release an episode that week, but nobody gives a shit. I honestly do get where you're coming from, and I get both sides. This is just, this is literally just opinion at this point. Of course.
Yeah.
But I really, this is, very upsetting. And I think he can't come to the country.
Yeah. And to be fair, and I know this is the movie podcast or the only podcast about movies, but like a lot of people can't come to the country. That's another horrible. It's just like I know we're going to use him as sort of the example, the one that because we're talking about his film, but like it's huge and it sucks and it's awful.
Yeah. I don't. I'm using him because
he's a touch point.
It's a touch point for what we talk about.
Yeah.
You know, obviously there are a lot of people that can't come to this. And the worst thing is that if you're a green card holder, you've been vetted.
I know.
You have gone through a long process to get you have to submit police records. You have to submit health records. You have to get HIV tested to come to America to get a green card.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a record.
Yeah. But yeah. Well, hopefully he fucking wins. That's the
well, for what it's worth.
Yeah. Anyway,
The Salesman, Asghar Fahardi, one of my favorite working filmmakers today.
But before we talk about that, I'm going to pull a Shahir.
Okay.
I saw two other movies I want to just briefly touch on. This is going to be a great pivot.
Yep.
They're both kind of about the end of the world.
Yep.
I saw I saw Resident Evil: The Final Chapter and Underworld: Blood Wars.
Are they the same movie at this point?
No, because this is the interesting thing, and Resident Evil, I have a special place in my heart for it, but they're both like one is just Resident Evil is pure schlock,
yeah,
and loves it and wallows in it and it feels whatever. And Underworld tries to do the sort of classy, almost like as far as classy action movies can go, like not even classy, let's call it elegant.
Right.
Because classy involves a different sort of space.
Right. Does it take itself a little more seriously?
Yes.
Right.
And I do feel like the filmmaking of that, if I had to just gather all of the things that filmmaking is better in Underworld than it is in Resident Evil. However,
is it Lynn Wiseman is the director of the Underworld series?
And God bless Kate Beckinsale. But the interesting thing about it is these movies, no matter what time they are made, from the first films to these films, I believe Resident Evil has 6 and Underworld might have 4 or 5. They feel like stepping back into the year 2000.
Does Marilyn Manson still do the soundtrack?
No, he only did the first one for Resident Evil.
Yeah.
But
I've only seen the first one.
And because of the madness that has been going on lately, it was actually a very nice reprieve because the second I sat my ass down in both of those, and I actually saw Underworld with our friend of the show, Jess Tucker.
Right.
It just gave me that sort of like it was a balm for a couple hours from the fucking nightmare fuel that's going on. It took me back to a much simpler
time. It did
time.
what movies should do.
Yes.
It made you forget it a little
and
bit.
more so because, just sort of the history with it. So if you like those movies, I do suggest going to see them. Shahir, you'd fucking hate them.
No, what's interesting, I think there was I posted up on our Facebook page a recap of the entire Resident Evil series.
I didn't even watch it before. I saw that, but I didn't even watch it before because I know them.
It came off a Reddit thread, and I was kind of, and then in the Reddit thread, there was my favorite comment, which was like, watching a Resident Evil movie is like melting an entire tub of ice cream and then drinking it with chocolate sauce and then eating cookies for the rest of the day. I know it's terrible for me, but I kind of like to do it.
Sometimes you just got to do it.
Sometimes you just got to do it. And I get that impulse. My only qualm there is because you've been trying to get me to do the Resident Evil movie. Like, look, if there were 2 Resident Evil movies, I'd be all for it. The fact that there's 7, I'm like, look, I don't need to talk about McDonald's as a franchise for 7 hours.
Look,
I can.
And I'll agree with that, but I will say if we decided to do the Fast and the Furious franchise, it would be our highest rated thing we've ever done.
Possibly.
Anyway, see those movies if you want a little slice of like.
Just know this, okay. Matt. If you persist, then it will be the second series that we've done, which will mean that I will make you watch either the Decalogue or and
the Decalogue sounds like a dope name.
The Decalogue's amazing. The thing is that I truly believe you would enjoy these films, like the Decalogue.
And I feel like if you just let yourself have some fun, you'd like these films.
Yeah. It'll either be the Decalogue, the Red, White, and Blue. These are all Krzysztof Kieślowski films.
I know them now. You've taught me.
Yeah, we could do. I would love to do the Matthew Barney Cremaster cycle.
I was always interested in seeing that. I saw because how many are there? There's 3?
There's 9.
Oh, are there? Yeah. I thought they were really long and there were 3. I've seen 1.
Some of them are short, and then some of them, like he made short versions of them.
Sure.
And then he's made the last film he did, River of Fundament, was 6.5 hours long.
Fundament.
And Drawing Restraint #9 is actually a favorite film of
Sure.
mine. So I would love, if you just know that, Matt.
Yeah, that's fine.
If we're doing this, we're doing those.
Well, it's fine. Let's get unemployed. Let's get unemployed and just do this.
And they will be the lowest rated episodes
Hey, that's
we
fine.
ever do. There will be 2 people listening in.
And they'll love it.
And there'll be you and me listening back to our own episodes.
All right, but we're about a half hour in. Let's actually talk about this damn movie.
All right.
hold
The
on.
Salesman.
There we
Cracking
go.
it open.
Cracking the beer.
Well, here's an interesting thing as well. This movie was sold out when you went to see it, right?
Yeah, it was sold out at the Angelica in New York, so we had to go to the Lincoln Center Theater. So I went with my good friend Rya Backer and her fiance Nick. They were nice enough to triple date. It was super nice.
How was that?
It was great. They're just great
Do
people.
you sit in the middle and they each hold one of your hands?
Yeah, that is how it went.
Or do you kind of like, you're the popcorn receptacle?
Right, and then both of our hands meet in the pop. I have to eat popcorn two-handed.
You would be prime dick in a box kind of.
Yeah, but there wasn't any time.
Okay.
And yeah, we went and
no time to cut a hole in the box.
No, Rya has an interesting perspective because Rya is half Iranian.
Oh, cool.
And I actually got her to speak about it. We have a couple little clips we'll be playing throughout the show. I recorded at work today. Yeah, because we've been working on a show together. So she had a lot of really interesting perspectives about it. Specifically, actually, why don't I play one now? Just even because it's more about watching a foreign film in general.
Okay.
And she had some.
Surely we've covered this ground, Matt.
No, but like a subtitled film and how that can be different. She speaks Farsi.
Okay.
So here, listen to this. I am here with Rya Backer.
Hello.
We're live at our place of business right now.
Shout out to the PA room.
Yes, it's lovely. It's full of lots of craft services. And I wanted to ask you a couple things. We went on a lovely triple date with me, you, and your fiance.
Yes.
It was romantic.
Nick and I bring the romance.
I know, and I really appreciated it.
To any and all things.
The flowers were a very nice touch. I appreciate it. They're on my desk.
He's a gentleman.
Yeah, he is a very sweet man.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, because you definitely had a different experience than I feel like most people in the theater had.
Yes.
Because
I'm half Iranian.
Dun dun dun, and you speak Farsi.
بله فارسی حرف میزنم.
There you go.
بله.
So
Salam.
you got to experience this from an angle I feel like that no one else really did, at least in that theater, because like I noticed your reactions were different at different moments and times than everyone else's were.
Yeah, I mean, it's... I don't know. I actually think you give me a little more credit than I deserve, only because, like, I just happen to understand some of the phrases or some of the dialogue that they said in Farsi that was not, I wouldn't say improperly translated, but that wasn't particularly accurately translated into English. Some of the lines were, funnier or more kind of nutty than others. But the one that was especially of note is, like, there's this one neighbor in their apartment complex in which they all live who says, like, I'm going to, like, he ought to drown and be hung by his neck, about the perpetrator.
Yeah.
But I read the English subtitle and it said, like, he ought to be publicly humiliated. So it was a little out of character for someone in this rather tiny theater to audibly gasp when she really didn't say that much. I was a bit more in line with the dialogue and how they were all speaking with each other. I think that I also, because I grew up in a cultural enough Persian home, my mother is Iranian and my grandmother lived with us. I really enjoyed seeing how often they all drank tea, chai.
Sure.
Chai michai. That means, would you like tea?
All right. Always.
And, so there were those small little bits of customs that, were sweet for me to see. But that would have been obvious because it is a Persian movie.
Yeah, so she was. It's interesting. The sort of what I was touching on was the pacing. Is like you always are a little off.
Yeah.
When you're reading a film, she was reacting in very interesting ways, and like it was enjoyable to see her watch this because like it's what anyone who watches a movie in their native language would it was a different experience.
I mean, I have a thing which is that I believe every language kind of has its own unique poetry.
Oh yeah, there's a cadence to it, 100%.
Yeah, and the one that I'm always in because I'm a big Wong Kar-wai fan, and I used to watch a lot of Wong Kar-wai movies, and I always found the writing of Wong Kar-wai movies just devastatingly beautiful.
Sure.
There was like a poetry to the language. And then he did a film, his first English language film, My Blueberry Nights.
Yep.
And the language
Didn't quite work.
Well, when people started speaking what he was saying in English, there was a kind of like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But onward to The Salesman.
Sure.
The story of a young couple, Imad and Rana, who live in Tehran, who are putting on a play of Death of a Salesman, Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, when...
Salesman!
When...
He's never listened to Rush.
I've never listened to Rush, but I have one hell of a Rush impersonation. When their apartment is deemed uninhabitable through a pretty amazing sequence right at the beginning of the film, because of nearby construction.
Yeah, they don't give a shit about zoning.
And so they're forced to move into a new apartment that Babak, a friend of theirs, happens to have.
Who's in their theater company.
Yeah, a little shoddy, but it kind of, will do. Unfortunately,
I'll tell you, I'm looking for apartments now. I like that apartment.
Yeah.
That apartment was fine.
You have low standards, but no, you're right. I would take that apartment too. It wasn't that bad.
It had a view.
Now, would you? But the one thing was that the previous tenants' positions were still in one room.
Yes.
Which is a cause of annoyance. Now, the Asghar Fahardi has a thing which the reason why he's my favorite working director today.
Sure.
Is everything matters in his movies. There's nothing throwaway. And every detail matters.
I have a couple things I think didn't matter, so I'll be interested to talk about.
Right, and I'll be upfront of my review of this film. Is I love Asghar Fahardi. This is my least favorite of his films. It's not, but it's kind of in that way that like a bad Michael Jordan game.
It's still a Michael Jordan game.
Still a Michael Jordan game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's of the four that I've seen so far, it is my least the least interesting to me.
Sure.
But one of the things I love that he does is that he is a person all about details. And I think the thing that maybe it doesn't quite work here is the details are slightly more esoteric in this case.
Right.
Like, for example, there's a short story that is referred to at the beginning of the film, which is not of that importance to the story, but it is important if you know Iranian cinema and where this guy comes from.
Oh, the cow.
Yeah, the cow, which turns
so the dude is a teacher.
Yeah.
And
Imad is a teacher.
Imad is a teacher, and he is teaching his class about this Iranian story, or is it a play?
It's a short story that was turned into a film
called "The Cow," which is about an impoverished village that basically they lose the owner of a cow in the village loses his only cow. It dies or something, and he goes insane and like tries to become the cow and like starts mooing and eating hay and all this stuff, and slowly goes insane.
It was a personal favorite of the supreme leader at the time, or I don't know if this was pre-revolutionary. So I'm not too, I know a little bit about Iranian cinema, but not too much.
Sure.
There's a guy online, Kyle Calgreen, who runs a YouTube channel called Brows Held High. He does a terrific recap of Iranian cinema when he's talking about This Is Not a Film, which is an Iranian film that came out last year.
This is not a film.
Very interesting story. This Is Not a Film is by Jafar Panahi, who's an Iranian filmmaker who was banned from making films for 20 years because he was making a documentary about Ahmadinejad. And he basically made a film in his apartment by himself, baked a cake, put the film on a USB drive, and then put it into the cake and sent it to the Cannes Film Festival. Kind of amazing.
That's awesome.
It's on Netflix right now.
Well, that didn't work, Iran.
But at any rate, and the other factor in The Salesman is that the film is anchored around this. Well, not anchored, but they are telling us they're retelling the Death of a Salesman story, which. Kinda.
So this is the weird thing that this is where my lack of knowledge of the play Death of a Salesman fails me. I feel like if I knew the play better, I know it roughly.
Yeah.
I've seen it once, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That every time they sort of cut back to the theater company working on the play or showing a scene of it or like whatever, like I'm sure it's timely with what's going on in the film.
Yeah.
I can't connect the dots, and I tried.
Right.
And I don't know. I mean, that goes back to how much, outside knowledge should you need to have to enjoy a film. And that didn't affect my enjoyment. I just feel like to get the deeper meaning of what they're trying to do, I would have needed to know Death of a Salesman pretty well.
It's funny. I don't know Death of a Salesman very well. I've got obviously, like I know what it is.
Sure.
I've read other Arthur Miller plays, but not that one. And I've never seen it performed either. So it's kind of like I just vaguely know what it is, and for some reason I always get Death of a Salesman confused with Glengarry Glen Ross, which is, they're not related in any way, shape, or form.
Not at all.
But I felt like I understood why Death of a Salesman's connected to Imad and Rana's story. Now, I'll explain why when we get into spoilers, but I think you only need a very perfunctory knowledge of Death of a Salesman to really connect it.
Okay, I'm interested because for whatever reason I couldn't connect the dots.
What happens is later on is and I guess we're getting into spoilers.
Well, a couple things. Sorry, just before we get into spoilers, I do want to say.
Well, let's talk about our overall impression.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. It took me a long time to realize I liked it. I mean, by a long time I mean 24 hours. I walked out of it going I don't know what to feel about this because it's a incredibly sad film.
Mm-hmm.
There are no winners.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly well done. It's impeccably acted. It's directed the fuck out of.
Yeah,
the cinematography is great.
And it's a usual company of actors that he's worked with. Tarana Alodis. I'm going to pronounce these better.
Yeah.
They were actually, in fact, they were both in About Ellie, which I just watched a few.
So it's new wave, right? Yeah. But does that mean, were they not actors before they started working with him?
I don't know their history. I think they're pretty well established actors.
Okay, because isn't new wave when you... Oh no, no.
Well, there's different. I mean, every country has its own flavor of neorealism or new wave, where they,
because one of my favorite films, Umberto D, the Italian one, that's all non-actors,
right?
And that felt as real to me. I mean, this movie
that's the neorealistic period in Italian cinema.
This one, I know it's new wave and neorealism are different, but they didn't feel. I knew they were actors, obviously, but they acted so damn well that it didn't feel like act. I never questioned
the authenticity of what you want.
Yeah,
I mean, listen, you need to watch A Separation immediately.
You hear that, internet? You need to watch it.
I kid you not. A Separation is a life-changing movie.
Okay.
It is. I hadn't watched a movie like that where, again, I was on the edge of my seat because of a piece of unknown information. And the same with About Ellie.
I'm guessing Separation is not about when Spider-Man gets rid of the alien symbiote that eventually becomes Venom.
That is a reach even for you.
No, it's not. There's a game called Separation Anxiety. So it's not. It's not.
That is a reach even for you,
nope.
Mr. Kroll.
I got that fruit.
There you have it, listeners. We got our Marvel plug in.
You already put it in for Thor earlier. That was an extra.
You actually mentioned Thor. You mentioned Taika.
And you brought up Thor. Wait, roll the tape.
Hold on.
Roll the tape.
I'm going to roll the tape. You said, is Taika's next film going to excite you? And I said it was Thor.
Yeah, but I didn't say the name. You said the name.
You primed me to say that.
Yep. I didn't say I didn't prime you.
Okay. A Separation is amazing. And so the reason I think you might have felt the way you did is that he is a phenomenal writer. He is, I think, quite possibly one of the best writers working in the medium of cinema today. And in that everything feels within, and he writes. We talked about this with our American Honey review. One thing that I love films that are meditative. A film like Arrival is kind of meditative.
Sure,
it's reflecting on things that have happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily about the actions that are happening right in front of them right now. I mean, it's a little bit. Moonlight is a meditative film.
Yes, there's been a lot of those recently.
I love those films, but one thing that I'm always amazed by is when a film is immediate, where the nexus between drama and the thought behind that drama in terms of what the film is trying to say are immediately connected. So in other words, the action is leading to what we should think. Mad Max is a really good example of that. So Asghar Fahardi is one of those, we often think about foreign filmmakers. A film like this is not a film, is a meditative film. But Asghar Fahardi does not make meditative films. He makes films that are profound, that will make you think, that will make you meditate, but they're about the immediate action that's happening.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I don't think, there's a lot that I was trying to unpackage whether or not I liked this film, but this film didn't leave me thinking about anything. I think that's why I thought I didn't like it at first, because it didn't leave me like questioning certain morals or the right or I don't know.
It left me thinking a lot about who's right, who's wrong, and what is the value.
I looked at it as no one was right, and we'll get into sort of why. But the thing about it is this, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to sell you. I think the filmmaking craft here is far better than the examples that I'll give. But this
if you mention Underworld in comparison now,
no. It's still really fun. Go see Blood Wars. The feeling that I get from a lot of like the good timey fun movies that I go see, right? That we would call like a popcorn flick or something like that, that I watch and then I don't particularly think about later. I think this film the craft of it is much better, but it's the same result for me personally.
Right.
Because I saw it, I felt a lot of feelings, and then my only thought after the fact was trying to figure out if I actually liked the movie or not. I feel like everything that it did, it buttoned up kind of enough for me to be like, oh, okay, that's what he's trying to say.
Right.
And then it never left me questioning anything beyond that. And again, that's just me. And that's not to dismay or sort of discredit the film at all. I like it. I've determined that probably in the last like 3 hours.
I love that you're doing like an algebra equation to like.
Well, I have to because it's important to me. Like I should know if I like a movie.
Right.
Like I should.
Yeah.
And maybe there's something that's actually very complimentary in the fact that I had to think about in a weird way, I had to think about if I liked it or not.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot there to like. I just don't know if it's something that I will continually be like, oh man, like Ahmad is thing that and the other thing. Like I won't do that.
It's funny. I always think that if I couldn't fault the film, and but I wasn't sure if I liked it, but it left me thinking about it a lot. I usually think that that's a good sign. Like that's a sign of something really good. Like if I'm having those questions, the last film, and boy, this is a deep cut. The last film that made me feel that way is a movie called Demon Lover by Oliver Assayas.
I like both of those words.
I think you would actually really like this film because it's about gaming, and it's about the
listening.
online
Sell me.
culture. It's a fucked up movie.
I like it.
Very weird.
Love it.
I'm not sure if I liked it.
Okay.
But it like I saw that movie some 12 years ago now, probably.
Okay.
I think, and I still think about it, even though I've never seen it again.
Demon Lover.
It's an interesting movie. I'd be curious to watch it again. We should maybe drag it out. It's not.
All right. Maybe I'll go to Astoria this weekend and we'll watch Demon Lover.
It's not a movie that's talked about that much.
All right.
So I think that's usually a good sign. I agree with. Like I said, it's not my favorite Asghar Fahardi film. It gets into but again, it's like I said, a Michael Jordan game is still a Michael Jordan game.
I understand that entirely. And okay, so let's get into spoilers now. Is that fair?
That's fair. The only thing I would say is that it's a good. He gets into some territory that is very interesting for him, but it does do things that he's very good at, which is that often in his films there is a misunderstanding about an event that he peels back and allows you to see it from about 4 different angles.
Sure. So let's just sort of, I mean, we're not going to go as deeply into the breakdown of this film because we've talked about other things and we only have so much time. But so basically they move into this apartment. Ahmad and his wife, what was her name? Rana. And they move into this apartment. There's this woman who lived there before left some of her stuff that eventually she won't come and get it because she doesn't have a place yet, quote unquote, Babak says. So they eventually move it outside. And then Ahmad.
This is the big spoiler of the film and the big event of the film is about what you're about to describe, right?
So Ahmad is gone for one reason or another. He's at the playhouse or he's doing something or running late for school. Doesn't fucking matter. And someone buzzes the door as Rana is taking a shower. She just buzzes him in thinking it's Ahmad and that's that. Turns out, and there's a haunting shot of the door just like open like for like 20 seconds, just like slowly creaking. And you never see who comes in.
Right.
But that was beautiful and terrifying. And then it turns out that she gets assaulted in one way or another. You're not exactly quite sure, and I have something to say about that as well eventually. And then the story of this is basically Ahmad trying to figure out who did this to his wife. Now, there's multiple reasons why he is trying to figure that out, which I think culturally is very interesting. There's obviously he loves and cares for his wife, and even though there's some exchanges in this film that might seem less than nurturing, let's say, I do believe that the character loves his wife. The other thing is there's a certain sort of honor-dishonor sort of element to this that I feel like would not exist entirely to this level in
the Michael Bay remake of this movie is not gonna translate that.
It'll have an argument about the Romeo and Juliet law so they can fuck underage people.
Oh,
but what? Transformers? That was a Hasbro movie.
I'm not saying I didn't prime you.
God damn it. So sorry, I'm back. So the interesting thing that I and actually me and Rya were talking about this was the way that they portray this, because she doesn't want to go to the police. So that leaves her husband sort of with only this sort of option, at least he sees. And you're never quite sure what happens. Did he just attack her, realize it wasn't her, and leave? But then there's money left at the apartment. So like, did something? Basically, the idea, we never know if it was an actual sexual assault or not. You find out later that the woman who rented the apartment before him was a woman of ill repute, or the oldest profession, or however you want to put it. And so that's why this caller came and did what he did. You don't know sort of why, but that's why he at least arrived in the first place.
Right.
There was an interesting thing. I was curious because I know Iran has certain censorship issues.
Right.
And I'm glad you said that a lot of his films are based around sort of like murky questions and purposefully.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know if they couldn't actually just say it was downright sexual assault in the film because of the sort of things you're not allowed to say in Iranian film.
I don't know if that's the case, but I to be honest, I don't know a lot about what Iranian, Iranian life is like. But I mean, the one impression, but obviously, as an outside viewer, you can pick up on clues, and you shouldn't, I think this is actually a useful tool in terms of watching films that are not from your own culture. Is to go in with an open mind and say, well, okay, if people are acting this way, that must be a cultural norm that we don't
understand. So that was something actually I just sort about Iranian film in general, because you and I don't have a particular history other than with this director with you, I think, right?
I've seen a few Iranian films, and like the one thing about Iranian films that I am really always in awe of is their self-reflexivity.
Sure. Well, you know who's seen a lot more than both of us?
Who's that?
Rya.
Okay.
She talked about it.
Okay.
Roll the thing. Well, let's talk about Iranian film for a second, because this I feel like I might have seen one other, but you've been immersed in this for a lot of your life.
I have.
So what did this movie check the boxes of what Iranian film tends to be? Did it kind of jump outside of it? Like how does it stack up against sort of the pantheon?
Well, I wouldn't say that I'm like the noted expert, but I do know that
out of everyone on this podcast, you are the expert.
Yeah, with all due respect to Shahir.
Oh, yeah, of course. And this being the only podcast about the film The Salesman, you are now the expert.
Yes, well, thank you. My mother will be very excited to know this. I think I've seen a lot of Iranian movies, both, for pleasure and with my family growing up. We would go to the Lincoln Plaza Cinema, the same one that we went to.
The very same, probably the same seats. Yeah, why not? Let's go with it.
It hasn't really had a makeover in quite some years.
IMAX not coming.
No. I think it stacks up in the depression factor. I don't know if I've ever left a Persian movie and went well, that was a lighthearted romp. Wow. I really just let's go have fucking lunch now. No, you want to go under covers and maybe call your parents. Just really appreciate what you have, because everyone in that movie has nothing by the end. I think a very good example of that is there's this one movie, Bache Asiman, Children of Heaven, which is just I remember being in 9th grade or whenever it came out and going with my mother and just loud crying because they are just so deeply emotional. But that is, I think, not to deride an entire genre, because Iranian cinema is this amazing export that a now rather controversial country is incredibly proud of. And they have an incredibly rich culture that, you know, you're not going to get Dumb and Dumber, but you're going to get these incredibly layered and rich stories that hold up really nicely and portray just a wealth of different emotions and many different shades of sadness.
So yeah, I found that very interesting because I wanted to see how it stacked up against a lot of other Iranian film. Are these themes and sort of feelings and emotions that come across a lot in that? And is that, you know, that obviously some of that, if that's true, is culturally based, and it's just very interesting to me.
I think we get into a little bit of I want to say slightly dangerous territory when you try to categorize the entire body of work of a nation.
Of course.
No, I'm not saying that in a pejorative way. I'm just saying, like, in terms of, you know, like, this is an interesting question, and you know, part of me just wants to say that I think it can be, you know, because we don't do that with American, you know, like you wouldn't. If you're,
I think other countries do it, but then
you do it about other countries, which is you don't do it about your own culture.
Sure, and it's interesting because everyone thinks American movies are a certain thing, and there's 1,000 different kinds of American movies, and everyone's going to think Iranian film is sort of, but like maybe only the bigger ones are sort of falling into that thing. Same with you know, it's everywhere has their own thing, and when you look at it as an outsider, it always gets an interesting perspective.
You know, something that I always remember when thinking about this was that because when I was in New Zealand, I love going to video stores. I don't know why. I still love going to video stores.
They're fun.
They're fun. I love browsing.
God, there was one on St. Mark's that was awesome.
There's still one in the Upper East Side. Shout out to We Deliver Videos. That's great. It's got a great catalog. Anyway, in New Zealand, and I remember going, like, I would always browse the foreign and world section of any video store I go into. And the thing that I found amusing one day was that I found 2 or 3 New Zealand films in the foreign section at a New Zealand video store. And it's this thing. It always happens because, you know, like, we look at films that we look at cinema as American by default, and anything outside of that is foreign. And it's weird when you're in another culture that does that to its own cinema.
Yeah, that's weird.
You know, like, and I remember, like, taking the video up and pointing it out to the video store clerk, and they were like, "Oh yeah, oh, that's not a foreign movie? That looks like a foreign movie." I was like, "It was shot around the corner, bro," and it was like, you know, that's just weird.
Yeah.
So I think there's a, you know, and here's the thing. Rya would have grown up watching Iranian comedy. She would have grown up watching Iranian soap operas. She would have grown up watching.
I'll have to ask her.
You know, because, like, if you ask me about Indian movies, I grew up watching Indian comedies, Indian soap operas, Indian dramas. But the ones that tend to make it into the international marketplace have some value that American cinema can't fill, and that because American cinema is the default. So the ones that make it through here are those.
Sure.
It's weird. Like the front runner for the best foreign film Oscar is a comedy this year, which is very rare for the best foreign film Oscar. Tony Erdmann, a German film. I believe it's German. I haven't seen it yet. I hear it's fantastic.
Okay.
It's very, you know, but like comedy is something that America puts out a lot of. So it didn't, you know, a foreign comedy doesn't tend to make a big impact here. So I think I think there's a little bit of a risky thing in terms of categorizing a film by its nation. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because Asghar Fahardi is not the same kind of filmmaker as Kiarostami is. He's not the same kind of
100%. But then there's also just the sort of, if you look at everything from a macro level, I mean, you can do this with American film based on what's going on culturally. Hell, in the next couple years, we're going to get some weird damn movies.
We are, but you know, like, obviously there are going to be outliers to that and things that we don't understand. Of course,
there's always exceptions to the rule. Yes.
But yes, of the three, I can say with authority, of the 4 Asghar Fahardi films I've seen, they linger around this unanswered question, and it's it often is about, like, for example, it's often about an event that everyone has seen and witnessed, but everyone has a different opinion about why it happened.
Right. So in this film in particular, eventually Ahmad goes and basically becomes Batman and starts doing some crazy detective work.
DC plug. We got them all now. Hasbro, Marvel, and DC.
Yeah, well, Hasbro.
Anything else on this list we need to get through?
Oh, shit. Well, no, I mentioned BioShock. That's good. Fast and Furious, great. No, I think we're good.
I think we're good. Okay, let's move on.
Skyrim. No. So the Hearthstone. The thing about this is where, so as he becomes Batman and starts like doing a lot of like really good detective work, and something you were talking about was like the details that this guy puts in all of his films. It's so great because like
everything matters.
Everything. Well, that's the thing. The small things, I 100% agree. Everything matters. There was something weird that happened during this sort of like hunt for this dude that assaulted his wife, that certain little things didn't matter, but enough of them did. Now, he finds keys in the apartment as well, but then he goes and tries on various cars in the lot. And then he finds one that's a pickup truck, and then he goes and takes that pickup truck and parks it in his apartment building's garage because he wants to see if the guy will come back for it. That's a great fucking move.
Yeah.
And then the Rama
she moves the vehicle.
She moves the vehicle
because she's annoyed of having to move it all the time in the parking garage.
So she puts
it. That's a little detail in this movie.
But she puts
revenge.
it outside, and then it goes, and then the guy came and got it somehow, and then it's gone. And then upon happenstance, he finds it again. He finds it while he's driving around.
Right.
Now that to me is, and I'm trying to figure out why it's not perfunctory, but that whole arc is kind of perfunctory. Because it doesn't truly matter. Now it feels real.
Right.
It feels that goes towards a sense of these guys don't feel like actors. It feels like something that's actually happening. And I get that.
It also does it point to like the fact that they haven't taken this to the police, that they're kind of trying, like they're not used to dealing with this, and they're trying to figure out how to deal with it. And what happens?
It was just an unnecessary hurdle in the story. You could have easily done it without that.
Well,
10 minutes.
So the thing that was interesting to me in that entire exchange is the way in which Ahmad was basically trying to ignore the question of what happened to you. He doesn't just directly ask her. She's not willing to say what happened to her. I think
because at first you think it might have just been a violent assault. The guy realized it wasn't the prostitute that lived there before, and he leaves. Then they hint to that it could be something more. And then there's money on the table, so you're like, "What the fuck is that?"
And you start to see Ahmad kind of slowly. I don't want to say unravel because he doesn't become unhinged.
Does he become the cow?
No. No.
No?
Nope. Nope. Does not become the cow.
What? Really?
No, not the cow.
Why?
Not the cow. Not the cow. We're just not going to do the cow. He's not the cow. Not the cow. Not the cow.
Okay.
Not the cow.
I don't know how to react right now.
We'll just move on.
All right. Guys, if you know what just happened, email us at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. I don't know.
You see him slowly unravel in a way that I think is interesting, in that he wants to do, like, he's powerless to do anything about that. And basically he's got his like little things that he can do. He can try out the keys. He can he gets annoyed that she had to move the car. So he goes out and he's driving and he's trying to figure out where this car, and it comes up again. And then he immediately launches into this like bizarre, not bizarre, but like very,
you can say Batman.
No, Machiavellian.
You can say Batman.
I'm going to go with Machiavellian.
Okay.
Machiavellian scheme in order to lure out the person who he thinks has done this.
He finds the truck at a bakery, and he goes in and he asks them to, you got to move your car because like they're going to give tickets. And then they're like, oh, dude, go move your car. And then he sees the guy. It's a young gentleman. He's like, oh, that's the dude. And then he follows him to do his deliveries, and then he's like, follows him, and he does a very clever thing. He's like, oh, hey, I'm moving soon. He's like, hey, can you help me move my car, my stuff, because you have that great truck? And the guy's like, I don't want to do it. And they finally convinces him to do it, and they exchange numbers. Side note, another perfunctory thing I feel like that happens, only two I really feel like. It's the moving of the truck, and then it's the argument he gets in eventually with Babak.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like that goes anywhere. He basically starts like getting into this tiff with the guy who got them the apartment, and rightfully so.
I think it's part of the whole
confusion, unraveling.
Yeah,
okay.
It's kind of,
and I'll see that. I'll concede to that one. That makes sense to me.
I didn't realize this was a concession, like we're fighting.
No, but I'm saying that what you just said does change my, sort of even speaking this entire thing does change my mind. Because when I came in, I was like, there are two things that don't matter in this movie, surrounded by a ton of really great thought out shit that matters. So those obviously stand out for me. But now I'm gonna knock it down to one, because that is true.
But I think like it also, like, it's that sort of element of realism. I remember once we were on a beach drinking, and a friend of mine had their cigarette stolen.
Look at fucking fancy pants over here.
This is very, and then
I was
she,
raised on a houseboat in Spain.
and then she asked me to like find the person who stole her cigarettes. And I
would never do that.
And like, and I had to
were you
like,
sleeping with this woman?
No. It was a good friend. And then,
okay, good friend, you can do it.
And I was like, but
I thought
then
this was an acquaintance.
But you know what? The way you just described what he was doing, it reminded me of that because what that event, like trying to figure out who stole the cigarettes and like how to get it back and all this sort of stuff. It reminded me that like in the real world, nothing is black and white, and you can never, even if someone is in the wrong, you will never get the satisfaction of them admitting they're in the wrong. You know, like that just doesn't happen in the real world.
What, Trump's not going to say he's sorry?
Everyone believes they're the hero of their own movie. And right now, we are living in Trumpo land.
Oh, man.
And we're just along for the ride. But, you know, like that's what that, you know, I remember like trying to, like not interrogate, but like ask someone about, like, did you happen to have a packet of cigarettes?
You became Batman.
And it's the thing with the car and him going to the bakery and having to like come up with a, you know, this is not the grand master plan of an action hero. This is a guy who wants,
I thought it was pretty fucking clever.
Yeah, it's pretty, but you know, like he's basically,
but he's doing shit that I would do. Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe Batman's the wrong analogy. He's doing common man Batman.
Common man Batman.
Yeah. It's a lot of mans. Common Batman. There we go.
Batman year one.
Yeah, sure, when he's just getting the hang of it.
Yeah, except without the money.
Right. Without the money in a much shittier apartment.
Was that Blank Man? Was that there was Blank Man?
There was Blank Man.
Dark Man was kind of Batman year one without the money.
Sure.
We are really, really getting deep into our list.
Check out the Sam Raimi classic Dark Man.
Give me the fucking beer.
Whoa. So eventually, he arranges this whole thing to happen. He calls the guy to come help him move, and he's going to trap him and sort of like just talk him, like to confront him.
Yeah.
Turns out, not the same guy shows up.
No.
Elderly gentleman shows up.
Elderly gentleman.
And it turns out that he is the guy's father-in-law. So the dude that he met at the bakery that he convinced to help him move was busy because he's marrying this elderly gentleman's daughter.
Right.
Now, originally, Ahmad decides to tell the father what happened. And that gets him very uncomfortable. He's like, he's like, if this is true, then the wedding's off and da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Turns out, he calls him. He's like, no, you got to get him to come here. You got to get him to come here. I need to talk to him myself. And there's a lot of shady dealings on the phone. Turns out, based on a bunch of different clues, like they don't give each other their numbers and blah, 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 that Ahmad's starting to think maybe this guy is more important to this tale than he thought, and he doesn't let him leave. And in conjunction with that, there was blood on the stairs as sort of like an exit trail of whoever assaulted his wife. And he decides maybe this dude should take off his shoes.
Right.
And he finds out that one of the foots is bandaged.
We're in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle land now?
Yeah, the
like,
Foot Clan.
Yeah.
He's literally, see? It's fun. He finds out that it's bandaged, and it turns out that this is the dude that assaulted his wife.
This elderly gentleman, which changes. So what I love that happens here is that the film becomes real time. It like goes from this like really sort of like montagey, we're seeing events happen kind of thing, to just stop. And for the remainder of this movie, we're in real time zone. And it is this wonderful kind of dance between this guy, the father-in-law, Ahmad, and Rana, who turns up as well. And I love that
everyone shows up at the end.
What I loved here is that this is a classic vengeance tale, and it's a classic sort of revenge. You know, you're never gonna. Revenge is a
dish best served cold.
No. I was thinking of another thing. Revenge is never satisfactory. Revenge is always going to leave you slightly empty.
I don't know if any Klingon ever said that though.
Worf might have. Was Worf a Klingon?
Yes, Worf was a. Who are you?
Anyway, what I love is this is the classic. Revenge is never going to be satisfying tale. You know, you're out for revenge and you get it, and you're not satisfied. And what I love here is that there's this unspoken thing that happens where Rana turns up and she agrees.
No, he goes and gets her. He locks that dude in a closet, then gets her.
Go gets her. And then he has a medical problem, which causes him to pass out. Then
they give him pills, so you think he might be dead, and then he's not dead. Then his family shows up finally because they called them,
and you realize that this person is really important to his family. Like really, really,
he's begging because what Ahmad wants to do
is humiliate
him in front of his family, because that'll discredit him and it'll just be fucking awful. But it will also hurt all three of these people that essentially in this particular thing are innocent.
Exactly.
And so then
says
his wife decides, he says to him straight up, if you do this,
we're
done.
Yeah, and she has this thing which she doesn't. She sees this man who has, by all accounts, wronged her, Kill Bill style,
possibly sexually assaulted her.
And he is, like he has. But what the film does is allows us to see him as he's a terrible human being, but as a human being as well as a terrible human being. If that makes sense. And
yeah, but it is so strange too. Side note, that he is so old and frail in this thing that he was able to like smash her into a mirror.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that's the oddity.
I don't know what happened, but like there's this unspoken thing where Rana doesn't want this to happen. She doesn't want, and to me the way I read that was that it is not Ahmad's place to seek revenge on her behalf. Like it's not his place to do it.
This is the interesting thing, and I don't know if this is a cultural thing, because I could see it happening also in America too. There's this whole thing where if you're, and this is fucking awful, but it is sort of like go with it. It's if your woman, quote unquote, if you can have a woman.
Wait, is this a woman that I've like hit over the head caveman style and dragged back to my
basically,
cave?
But do you get what I'm seriously, are you following sort of what I'm saying? Like if the woman you are with is wronged in that sort of way, you are and this is
you are responsible.
Not only that, you're responsible. You are less of a man if you don't take care of it.
So
take care of it. So there's this weird thing, and I wondered this in the film. And I said this in the beginning. Is Ahmad doing this because he loves his wife? Is he doing this because it's his honor on the line? Or is he doing this for a combination of both? And upon reflection, I feel like it's a combination of both, because it just feels that way, because what eventually happens, and we can talk about the end and then sort of our final thoughts about the movie, but he decides to let him go, but first he says, oh no, wait, we have to settle something in the back room. And he settles him because he doesn't want the money that he left, because it's a whole thing about honor. He gives him the money because there was even a point where his wife went and bought dinner and bought a bunch of groceries and made a great spaghetti dinner. But he's like, oh, how'd you do this? You didn't have my credit card. He's like, oh, I've used the money you left me on the counter. And he realized it was the money that was left that he didn't tell her was there. So it's a whole like making sure everything is even and square. So he gives him the money and he smacks him across the face super hard.
Yeah.
And then they walk out with the family, his wife and his son-in-law and his daughter. And then he basically has another heart attack or medical condition on the stairs, and I believe passes away.
Well,
we don't really know if he passes away.
But see, I think the thing that, like...
And then, then we'll finish up, then we'll talk about it, is the final thing. Ahmad and Rana are back at the playhouse getting their makeup done up for the scene in the movie. It's just silence, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth of them getting their makeup done, getting them aged, basically. And that's the end of the movie.
So the thing, I think the really important thing to talk about is the thing you just mentioned, which is this idea that it is you're less of a man if you don't take care of it. And I think what I really liked about this film was seeing that is a particular perception of the world that we have that may not necessarily be true.
I don't think it's true, but I think a lot of people think it's true.
Of course, and I think Ahmad thinks it's true.
100%.
But what there's this moment where Rana, I don't think she ever says this explicitly, but this was my thought like trying to get myself into a thought process, was that it is not your place to seek revenge for this. She is basically saying, I want to forget this. Yep. I don't want to remember this. I don't want this to be a part of who I am.
And I don't want to ruin 3 other people's lives for the mistakes of this asshole.
Yeah, exactly. And she's not that person. And the movie makes us see this person in a way that I don't think another film would do, which is that he has a family and and he matters to that family. And like, not just a little bit, you know, like it's to the son, it's to his wife, who like, we have these like extended scenes of the
family,
the hallway that we saw at the beginning of the film that was hard to get down because it was being cracked. We see an elderly woman having to climb those stairs, and she's trying to do it, you know, she's trying to do it, and she's very upset, and she's calling to her children to do it. Those are the kinds of details that you wouldn't see in another film.
It takes the time.
It takes its time to get there, and I think we just see, again, we see this event from a different angle. And it's, what I love about it is it's complicated. It's not
dirty and you don't really feel good at the end.
It's not black and white. And that's what I love that about this movie, you know, and I love that about all of his films, to be honest with you.
So, yeah.
So that to me was kind of the critical thing there, is seeing her. And what I loved about the way that they played out Death of a Salesman is prior to, this is me again saying I don't know a lot about Death of a Salesman, but prior to this scene, they play the death scene from Death of a Salesman, where we see Rana playing the wife.
Foreshadowing.
Like over her dead husband. And
Willie.
Willie Loman.
Yeah, but Rya was actually saying, not on when we recorded, but she was saying how it's hilarious because her relatives, I guess, can't say W's. So it's Willie.
Willie. You know, like we're seeing the Death of the Salesman is not just it's the death of their relationship in a way.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
And then the final,
that was the only one that caught me. Like, I got that one.
And then the final scene is them being made aged up. So this is them like moving forward from this from now on.
Whatever that means.
Completely separated. You know, like they're not in a scene together anymore.
There's a lot of questions at the end, but none of them are the ones that truly matter. Like everyone, it's weird. Like everyone in this loses.
I don't know. See, the thing is, if we were to talk about cinema as a product of their nation, and if we were to talk about cinema under Trump, there is a paradigm in Western cinema that I think that there has to be a winner and a loser. And that is not a paradigm that I see in Iranian movies. That's not a paradigm I see
That's fair.
in films of many other countries. The paradigm of win-lose is not a binary that necessarily has to correlate in that way. And I don't think that that's a paradigm that
I don't think it has to. I'm just stating that everyone loses.
Right, but I don't even think that that's the language of what happened in this film.
Okay.
I think what we saw was a relationship that entered a new phase, and
might be they moved on, which might be they aren't together anymore, which
it might, but I don't think there's a, you know, it's like I wouldn't call a relationship, like any relationship I've had that's ended, as losing, as much as I would say that change.
Well, you lose something. I'm not saying you're.
But you're saying lose as in like.
I'm saying lose as in everyone has lost something in this movie. Therefore, there are no winners. There are only losers.
Right. Again, I don't think that paradigm
I think I'm not using the right words, and I get what you're saying. Yeah. And I like that. I like movies that you don't need to have the hero win or whatever the hell. Like, it's just.
I even think the paradigm of hero doesn't apply here.
No, there's no hero here.
Yeah. But you know, like.
No, you know what? Fuck that. Rana's the hero.
Rana's the hero. How is she the hero?
Because she fucking is the one that goes at the pinnacle moment. She decides that it is not worth fucking ruining these other people's lives for the fuck ups that this one asshole did to her. She takes this weird sort of, not even weird, just almost like noble or almost saintly sort of thing. She's like, look, this is something that happened to me. We don't need to spread this to other people. She's like, I'm handling this. Let's forget about it and move on. That is a heroic action to me. And
but she loses her husband in the process.
Yeah, well, heroes lose shit.
I think, yeah. Again,
I'm just saying, if there is a hero, she is the hero. He is not.
Right. I don't. I guess it's a different paradigm. Like that's to me. The reason the film is beautiful is the way in which it exposed me to a different perspective on the way to live life.
Yep.
And this notion that I mean, that's the way I read it is that Ahmad, it is not your place to do this to another human being and do it on my behalf.
Yeah.
And I think that to me is what makes the film. Now, again, if we're going to go into final thoughts, it is.
Yeah, we are.
It is for me, the least complex and the least
Still a Jordan game.
yeah, it's the least interesting of Farhadi's films. And in terms of like, it didn't have me on the edge of my seat. It was very compelling, very beautifully told. This guy's obviously a master filmmaker.
Sure.
You know, like it goes without saying.
But you just said it.
I'm gonna say it because he's not allowed to come to this country.
Yeah. Someone's got to say it.
Yeah, you know, like, and I hope we all feel safer for that.
I sure do.
Yeah, I feel safer on a plane knowing that Asghar Fahardi.
Damn it.
You know what I've been singing for the last week is Actual Cannibal Shia LaBeouf. I'm going to replace that with any celebrity I like right now. So Actual Cannibal Asghar Fahardi is not on a plane following me right now. This is a masterclass in tension building, in filmmaking, in the overall body of Asghar Fahardi's work. It is a testament to his consistent quality. Even if I do, you know, like, it didn't get me. Like I said, I watched About Ellie about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I must talk about that movie to everyone I see.
Sure.
This is not one of those films for me. I think it's excellent. And I think it, in this genre, if there's a genre of revenge, of revenge films, I think this would be an interesting point in that genre.
Yeah, because it's not black and white.
Yeah. And you know, for all those reasons, it's absolutely worth your time and money, and please go out and see it.
And I'll say that I completely agree, and I will say that the conversation we've just had and the conversations that Rya and I have had, I think makes me like the film more. I do, and I think maybe even from the beginning of this podcast, I feel like there's a lot to unravel here, and if you can see it with people and then discuss it like that, that's sort of the interesting part for me. Mm-hmm. That I feel like makes its weight, and again, it's so funny. The film itself is good. Like, it's a good movie.
Very good film.
It's made very, very well.
Yeah.
But add on to that, this, like, it's very, you can discuss this and you should discuss this. This is something that's not only, and I'm not even talking about the actual director's dilemma. I'm talking about the film itself is something that you can talk over with the people you saw it with, and it will give you more insight than most of the movies you will discuss with people. And I think that has an intrinsic value to it. And I know 100%. You should totally go see this. You should totally support this.
On the basis of this, would you see the other 3 films I mentioned? The Past, The Separation.
I would, and I'll tell you this straight up because I'm going to be completely honest with you because you're my boy. I would at least see one of them. I'd see the one you think is the best one, and then if I like that one a lot, I would go watch the rest of his films. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say like on the strength of this film, I will go instantly watch his filmography. Yeah. I will say he's bought another movie and that I would happily pay for and give money into his pocket because I do think he is a fucking good filmmaker.
Right.
This one did. I mean, again, I'm singing its sort of praises now. I have issues with it. I've said them before. We don't need to go over them again.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I do think people should see it, and I hope they do outside of these sort of major metropolitan areas if they're available. Like, especially because now that it's an Oscar nom, even though he can't be there, that still gives this film a very, in this world, an edge of pristine that I hope gives this film more eyeballs because it deserves it. But let's get actually Rya. She has got one more thing. We're going to give her sort of the final word on this movie.
I would say you ought to go see The Salesman for a lot of reasons. Number one, because I know that this is not a political podcast, but I think
we've done political things before.
But in these times, I think it's kind of incumbent upon everyone to appreciate each other's cultures and you know, in a lot of ways, at the risk of sounding high-minded, these sorts of cultural touchstones and the things that we create are what bring us together. I'm also happy to send along any Iranian pop music that people would like to listen to. Shout out to Andy and Gugush. If either of them want to play my wedding and they're listening to this, get my number from Kroll. Okay, moving on. But yeah, I do think it is a great movie to see. Listen, it's not La La Land. You're not going to walk out of there singing, like I said. You probably may not even walk out of there talking. out of the theater. But I think it paints a very, a really interesting, I can't speak to its accuracy, but an interesting portrait of life in a country in which we don't live, in which they strive to express themselves creatively. I think it was really refreshing to see that in the Islamic Republic of Iran, they are performing an Arthur Miller play, who is a Jewish man who got Marilyn Monroe to convert. So
he's doing something right.
Big ups. Did. Yes, did. He is, like Frederick Douglass, he has passed away.
Frederick Douglass is doing great work.
Oh my God. But I do think, I remember even when I was a kid always being so proud of going to the movie, especially on a school night, which was such a thrill, and going to see A Taste of Cherry or going to see Children of Heaven, because it was this amazing extension of a country that I've never been to. My mother left when she was rather young. And I do think that it is important for us to see that most people just want the same stuff. They want to be fed. They have really shitty struggles like all the rest of us. The ones in The Salesman are traumatic. But I think, listen, I'd be remiss to not mention that there are moments at the end that did remind me of the Tyler Perry movie in which the woman who cheated got AIDS. I can't remember it now.
I love how you've turned this to a Tyler Perry film.
Oh, please have me on if you would like to discuss the Why Did I Get Married canon. So I'll see you for that one.
Well, there you have it. That is the only podcast about the film The Salesman.
And I think we're gonna have to go out with some Andy and what is it, Gugushi?
Yeah, we'll find it. We'll get Rya to find
it. Oh God, Rya, I'm so sorry if I butchered that.
She butchered it. But Shahir, before we go out with Iranian pop music, when you're not finding all that by yourself, where can folks find you?
You can find me at shahirdaud.com. That's SHAHIRDAUD, where my Instagram, Twitter, and all that stuff is connected there. Matt, how about you?
You can find me at Matthew Kroll, MATTHUWKROL.com. You can also find me at Skeletor, the number 4 PREZ on Instagram, or Emperor MSK on Twitter. You can also find us at Only Movie Pod at Twitter. Did you already say that? I don't even know. I'm so drunk right now. But
really, one beer.
Beer.
That's amazing.
No, I'm kidding. But this has been a really fun conversation, and I hope it was fun for all you, dear listeners. Give us some iTunes reviews. That would be absolutely lovely. I know it can be sometimes of a chore, but it would help us out entirely.
In this case, I do actually, I have looked, we are the only podcast about The Salesman at this point.
Yeah, that's what I said.
As far as I can tell.
That's what I said. We're always
I don't listen to you. I don't listen to you.
Oh, that's fair. And next week, we're going to see you, and it's going to be fucking awesome.
You have no idea, do you?
Fucking awesome. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.